I'm Jake Clue. This is our 1924 Model T that we call the basket case. This car was covered in Wicker when it was new in 1924 in Menominee, Michigan, which is the home of Lloyd Manufacturing then. Lloyd Flanders now, they're still in business making Wicker furniture, and they made Wicker baby buggies and lawn furniture and aircraft chairs, those types of things back then. The Wicker's all original. We cleaned it up and painted it. My dad did when he got it in 1991. And the Wicker's all over the original body parts except for the back, where there would have been a turtle back or a pickup bed, and on the hood where the louvers were at. The top has been replaced, the bright work has been replaced, and the paint's been cleaned up and repainted.
How many of these were made?
This is the only one.
Really?
Yeah, there was a rumor that there were 6 of them made, but I pretty much found that to not be true. The Wicker was put on by hand. We know that because the machine Wicker after that was not really Wicker. It was Lloyd loom, which was paper mache twisted over wire and done by a machine. But this is actual Wicker. So the original material would have looked like this. The way that you make it soft and flexible is to put it in real hot water, and it gets like spaghetti for about 45 minutes, and then it starts to get stiff again. So in that time, you'd have to do all of this weaving before it started to get hard, and then they would dip it in glue to hold the shape and then paint it after that. The Wicker's held on to the body. It floats on the fenders, so the green sections here just float and they're held on by the ribs. The black section is riveted to the body with brass rivets, and that's the same on most of the body pieces. And then where there's wood underneath, which there is on the Model T, so all of this is nailed on. All of these pieces have nails going through them that actually goes into the wood. Same thing here. So it's either nails or brass rivets that are holding it in place. I take it out to shows, especially when it's a charity. We go to the old car festival at Greenfield Village as many years as we can, or the Ford Model T Ford International Tours, those types of things.
And then why don't you talk about the interior for a moment?
Okay. It's an original Model T interior. It has some interesting accessories. It has a Fat Man steering wheel. There we go. Which gives you a little extra room to get in and out of the car, because the Roadsters only have one door. So if you're a little robust, it gives you some extra room to get in. Kind of the early version of tilt steering. And it's also got a locking steering column that was an accessory, so there's a keyhole on this side. It has a rim wind clock, which was an accessory. This would be a compression release, which was just a gate in front of the muffler on the exhaust system, which would make it a little less back pressure for starting. And then it's got the fancy hood ornament. I like to call it a GPS, because whichever way it points, that's where you're going.
Does that work all the time?
Yeah, it works. It doesn't need any software uploads. Okay, so the Model T doesn't have a lot of instrumentation. It has an ammeter that basically just tells you if the battery is charging or not. And the other thing it has is a gas gauge. And this gas gauge is set up for 3 different kinds of tanks. This particular car has an oval tank. So you take out the seat, open up the gas tank, dip this into it, and then look at the line next to oval tank to see how much fuel it has in it. So that's all the instrumentation. And then for driving the Model Ts, these were really pretty simple to drive. You just have to not have a model in your head. Henry said he wanted to make it easy enough so that even a woman could drive it. So his words, not mine. So to make the car go forward, you push this pedal down. When you push it all the way down, you're in low gear. And then this lever falls down, which engages high gear. Now when you let it out all the way, you're in high gear, and in between is neutral. So literally all you have to do to drive this car is push that pedal down to go slow, let it out all the way to go fast, and halfway is neutral. The right pedal is the brake, and the brake is actually not on the wheels. There are no physical brakes on the wheels. There's only a brake on the transmission. So what this does is it clamps down bands on the transmission that keeps it from turning. And then this pedal is reverse. So you push that down and you engage a lower gear that lets you go up a hill. And actually going up a hill backwards was the way to go, because Model Ts didn't have an oil pump in them. So they had a splash lubrication system. And if you went up too steep of a hill, the little cup underneath the connecting rod would tip up and run out of oil. So to keep that from happening, what you would do is if the hill was too steep, you'd back up the hill. The reason that would work is the gas tank is under the seat and there's no fuel pump. If you went up too steep of a hill, you'd run out of gas, which protects the engine. So you back up the hill, that gives you good gas flow into the engine, and it gives you good oil flow, which keeps you from burning up your cylinders. And this has the gas on the column, and then the other lever is the spark advance. It's start up, so you start it in the up position and then run down. So when you're running, you run it in the down position. And you can adjust it while you're driving, but really just do it by ear, however the engine runs best. And that's about it. It's pretty simple to drive a Model T. And this is the horn, which gets everybody's attention is standing in front of the car.
There you go. And then how do you wash this type of material?
I use Murphy's oil soap and water. It's pretty durable. And after I'm done washing it, I always blow it out with an air compressor, and not to protect the wicker, to protect the metal underneath, so the metal doesn't have water sitting on it. And the metal's actually all in really great shape. So
this is built-in picnic basket.
yeah, Lloyd Manufacturing, one of the things, what they became famous for was for making wicker furniture, wicker baby buggies. Well, it drives fine for what it was intended to do. I mean, it wasn't intended to be a highway car. It'll do about 30 miles an hour on a good day. It drives. We drive it all day when we go on tours and stuff. So I've driven it 100 miles in a day. The engine has been rebuilt because. Oh, sure. It's a real simple 4-cylinder engine. There's no fuel pump, there's no oil pump, there's no water pump. And actually it's kind of unique because it doesn't have a distributor per se either. It has 4 coils, and the coils are controlled by a timer, which acts kind of like a distributor, but it actually has an ignition circuit for each cylinder, which is what we have today on modern cars.
Sure.
So one coil can go bad and you keep on going.
And then what else, and these tires, these are...
They're standard Model T tires. So they were, 21-inch, I think, 3 inches wide, not made for high speed. They're made to have lots of ground clearance because roads were pretty bad back then, basically horse trails. So you had to have a lot of clearance, and Model Ts went anywhere. There's still hill climbs that they do with Model Ts.
That's incredible.
Although you have to put oil pumps on them if you're going to do a hill climb, because otherwise the oil won't go up a hill.
Have you, did I ask this already? Have you won awards?
We don't win a lot of awards, but this is one of our prize awards. Was when Ford had their 100th anniversary, they asked us to represent 1924. So they had one car from each year in front of the Ford headquarters, and we were the 1924 car, which was really an honor.
That is so neat. Yeah. And it's amazing how much height. That looks like 14 inches.
Oh yeah, there's lots of ground clearance underneath Model Ts, because that's what they needed to do. You needed to be able to go down horse paths.
Wow. And was this hand crank?
You can hand crank it, but it's got a starter. It has an electric starter, which I use because the way this car has the wicker on it, the crank is also shorter. Right. So to make sure you had enough clearance, they shortened this crank about 1.5 inches. So you've got even less leverage on this car than on any other Model T. Okay. So the wicker, we presume, was done by hand because of some of the characteristics. The Wicker, Lloyd loom wicker, which was what replaced this, was wire with paper mache wrapped around it, and this is actually wicker, pieces of wicker wood. The other thing that makes us think that it's from Lloyd Manufacturing is this shape, which is called a Jacquard pattern, and this is still seen on Lloyd Flanders furniture today. So that pretty much tells us that it was done by one of their artisans and follows the same type of patterns as most of their product then. Even the highlights are something that shows up on their baby buggies and on some of their other products.
Right.